That was a really interesting conference, Carl. I can't wait to start integrating what I learned into my course delivery.
Yes, we sure learned lots of interesting strategies. How do you plan to integrate what we learned into your classroom?
In my business management program, I plan to devote 12 hours during the first week of the program to teach my students how to think critically. I think it will help them as they proceed through the next 2 years of the program.
Don't you think they need to know something about business management before you can teach them how to think critically about business management?
No, I'm going to teach them generic critical thinking skills that they can apply to whatever they want. I feel that it is my moral duty as an instructor to prepare my students to be good ethical thinkers so that they will be a benefit to society as a whole. What is the point of only developing their critical thinking in one specific area?
Well, I attended an interesting session and learned that teaching critical thinking without course-specific content was a waste of time. You need to have context to apply the generic concepts of critical thinking because the context affects the interpretation of generic concepts.
Well, that must be just one opinion. Dr. Paul has written the whole book on critical thinking. He has this little circle he calls the elements of reasoning that describe the basic strategies like identifying purpose, assumptions, implications, questions, and point of view. I think these skills should be easy to teach without specific course content.
Those do seem like pretty important skills to have, and I can see how they would relate to my fruit fly physiology course. How would you recommend I teach my students to find assumptions?
That's easy. Assumptions are information used in a decision that is taken for granted. Like common beliefs or cause-effect relationships. Things like that.
What is an assumption my students would have about fruit fly anatomy?
I don't know anything about fruit flies.
Well, neither do my students. This is their first semester. I don't think they are going to be able to use generic critical thinking skills without becoming experts on fruit flies first.
This is why I am teaching my students critical thinking at the beginning of the program. Then, as they proceed through the specific courses, they will be able to use the elements of critical thinking to assess the new information they are getting. They will then be able to compare new concepts to what they already know and make reasoned judgments and form opinions through critical thinking. This will enable them to integrate their knowledge with sound business management reasoning.
That makes sense, but isn't it all just a bit too simplistic? I mean, really, how hard is it to learn to think about another point of view, or that you should be motivated and accurate in your thinking? Isn't that just like teaching someone to ride a bike by saying, make sure you don't fall over? I think teaching critical thinking requires more depth than that.
It all starts with awareness, and I think your bike example is a good one. Once you have the skill of riding the bike, you can ride it in many different situations. You can ride in the park or on the street, you can ride on dirt, and if you're careful you can also ride it in snow or on sand at the beach. The ability to ride a bike is very transferable in a wide variety of situations.
That's an interesting analogy. You may have a point there, but I still think there is a lot more to it than that. I think many people oversimplify the critical thinking process. I was reading this fascinating and engaging paper called Common Misconceptions of Critical Thinking, where I discovered that many people teaching critical thinking are going about it the wrong way. The authors said that teaching generic critical thinking as a transferable skill is logically misleading and pedagogically mischievous. In fact, two of the authors, Dr. Balin and Dr. Case, were at the conference and signed their paper for me. That's what I love about conferences. You get to hang with the rock stars of critical thinking.
I attended one of Dr. Case's lectures on developing tools for thinking critically. His concept is that there are 5 tools: background knowledge, criteria for judgment, critical thinking vocabulary, thinking strategies, and habits of mind that are used to produce critical thinking. That seems like a generic procedure to me.
Background knowledge and criteria for judgment seem pretty context-specific to me.
Yes, but critical thinking vocabulary and habits of mind sound pretty generic and should apply to anything. There was this automotive instructor at the conference, I think his name was Derek. Anyway, he said that he thought that the habits of mind provides the thinker with the perseverance and motivation to research the required background knowledge and criteria for judgment. He felt that Dr. Case's 5 tools were very transferable.
I don't see how a little research into a content area will provide someone with the expertise to think critically within a context of that specific area. Merpeck said that different problems and purposes change the inherent nature of the skills required in thinking. I wonder if this Derek guy might have been making Dr. Case's intellectual traits work for his own purposes. In the paper that Dr. Balin and Dr. Case wrote, it says, when considering developing generic critical thinking skills, we believe it misrepresents the major obstacle to good thinking, and grossly understates the significance of contextual factors in deciding how to proceed in any particular case of critical thinking.
Do you mean skills or tools?
Same thing.
No, I don't think so. A tool is something a person uses, but skill is the ability the person has using the tool.
While tools are used in many different ways in many different situations, skill in one area does not equate to skill in another.
I agree that there are differences with how a tool will be applied with different situation, but once somebody has understood the function and procedure for using the tool in one situation, it must be easier to use the tool in a different situation. I think that the more tools you have, then the more options you would have to choose from in a unique situation.
Okay, consider you have a paintbrush. Do you know how to use a paintbrush?
Don't get condescending.
Sorry. So anyway, if you have a paintbrush and some blue and white paint, could you paint an ocean scene?
Yes.
Good. How about painting me a picture of an apple?
No, I haven't got any red paint.
The red paint is the specific content knowledge. The fact that you know how to paint is irrelevant if you do not have the paint to work within a specific content area.
Well, maybe I like blue apples. Why do I have to go with the assumption that an apple must be red?
I don't know if we will be able to agree if generic skills can produce transferable critical thinking ability.
No, I think there is a lot more to it than yes or no. Anyway, I need to get ready for class.